listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good evening to you and welcome to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. On tonight's show, Reform UK says it'll halve crime and send foreign criminals currently clogging up our prisons to El Salvador if it comes to power at the next general election. Tough justice and a real deterrent, but can they fund it? And the government once again is reviewing the state's pension age, and that means that you will work longer and retire later. And yet, billions of pounds are still being poured into asylum hotels and foreign benefits. Whose side is our government really on? And Britain's losing £2 billion every single year to the black market illegal tobacco trade. 1 in 4 cigarettes are now fake or smuggled, with gangs exploiting small boat routes to flood the UK market with moody ciggies. So much for smashing the gangs. Well, the show is a pleasure to have your company. Plus, in tonight's show, the astonishing revelations from the new Greek immigration minister, one of the toughest in Europe, saying, get out of our country or you'll be sent straight back home or you'll stay in prison. And guess what? It's being backed by Brussels. You couldn't make it up. The European Union is being tougher on illegal immigration than our own Prime Minister. Get in touch usual ways. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But first, here's your headlines with the magnificent Mark White.
Good evening. The main news from the GB News Centre. A man accused of attacking a police officer during an altercation at Manchester Airport says it wasn't his intention to strike the officer. Mohammed Ahmad was giving evidence at Liverpool Crown Court. Mr Ahmad and his brother Mohammed Fahir Amaz are on trial accused of assaulting 3 Greater Manchester police officers as they attempted to arrest them in July last year. Both men from Rochdale deny allegations of assault. GB News reporter Jack Carson was in court.
Giving evidence today, Mr Ahmad said it was not his intention to attack a police officer at Manchester Airport in July last year. He said when officers initially entered the pay station area and grabbed his brother's neck, he was trying to de-escalate the situation. He denied claims from the prosecution that he was trying to intervene in his brother's arrest, and he said in his account when he felt a bang to the face, he had no choice but to defend himself. The trial here at Liverpool Crown Court continues.
A man has been found guilty of murdering 2 other men and dumping their remains in suitcases near the Clifton Suspension Bridge. 35-year-old Justin Mosquera killed civil partners Albert Alfonso and Paul Longworth on the 8th of July last year in their flat in West London. Mosquera, who was also living with the couple, was caught on CCTV as he brought some of the remains in suitcases to the bridge in Bristol. He'll be sentenced at a later date. Police searching for a missing mother in Cheshire have discovered a body in a local lake. 38-year-old Rachel Booth disappeared from the Northwich area over the weekend. She was last seen on CCTV at a petrol station in the early hours of Saturday morning. Police say a body was found in a lake near a popular beauty spot in the Oakmere area of Delamere. A spokesperson said there are not believed to be any suspicious circumstances. At least 19 people have been killed and 164 injured in Bangladesh after a military jet crashed into a school campus. Emergency services are still searching the rubble around the Milestone School and College in the capital Dhaka. The Bangladeshi Armed Forces have confirmed the F-7 jet experienced a mechanical fault after taking off on a training exercise. An Albanian people smuggler has been jailed for attempting to smuggle fellow Albanians across the English Channel. 44-year-old Bleda Bega was sentenced to 7 years in prison after he orchestrated the smuggling operation. He'd skippered a luxury yacht across the English Channel when it was intercepted by Border Force in April this year. When officers searched the yacht, they found 21 illegal immigrants hiding below deck. The 20 men and 1 woman, all Albanians, were crammed inside the vessel in dangerous conditions. That's it. You're right up to date with the headlines. Now over to the main man himself, Martin Daubney.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you indeed to the main man, Mark White, and welcome to GB News Tonight with me, Martin Daubney, your host for this evening. Now, today, Reform UK has swung the pendulum hard, promising to halve crime in Britain.
That Reform will be the toughest party on law and order and on crime that this country has ever seen. We will aim to cut crime by half in the first 5 years of a Reform government. We will take back control of our streets. We will take back control of our courts, of our prisons. And if you're a criminal, I am putting you on notice today that from 2029, or whenever that may be, either you obey the law or you will face very serious justice.
That was Nigel Farage earlier today. Now, armed with a £17.4 billion zero-tolerance package, they have vowed to stop early release for violent offenders, recruit 30,000 extra police officers, build new Nightingale jails and even lease prison space in countries such as El Salvador. Is this the tough love reset the public wants on broken British justice? Well, joining me now is the Reform Counsellor for Westminster City Council, Layla Cunningham. Ms Cunningham, welcome to the studio. And, of course, you're a former criminal prosecutor. You were at the headline launch today. In fact, you were the first to speak on that stage. Lots of eye-catching policies in there. The ones that really stand out are the deportation of 10,400 foreign offenders and even deporting British paedophiles, such as Ian Huntley, to places like El Salvador. Tell us what inspired this move from Reform UK.
What inspired it is that we don't have any prison spaces. A quarter of our prisoners are actually foreign. The Conservatives, I think, built something under 500 prison spaces, yet let in 6.5 million people in 14 years. And there's not enough space. And it also costs us a lot to house prisoners, especially high-security prisons, about 52,000. In France, it's 40,000. And we're proposing to send them abroad at a cost of 25,000, making a big saving in that sense.
Now, there's going to be a lot of resistance to this, of course, not just politically, but perhaps legally. The kind of thing that gets human rights lawyers clutching their pearls. But I'm assuming that a basis underlying all of this would be leaving the ECHR, which would defang, potentially, those legal oppositions that we get all the time now.
Yeah, I mean, we are Britain. We have laws that protect people. We don't need the ECHR to protect people's human rights. That's wedded in our judicial system. And, yeah, we would leave the ECHR. And I think people are sick to death about hearing of a foreign rapist or a violent criminal that can't be deported because their human rights matter more than ours. And it's time to put the victims and the British people's human rights before the criminals.
Tell us about Nightingale prisons. Of course, we built hospitals very, very quickly during COVID when we needed them, using military personnel. How would Nightingale prisons work?
In the same manner, it was a mission under COVID, and we were determined to get it, and we got the best people to lead that, and we do the same with prisons. For instance, there's Oakwood Prison that is built in a modular way, and their running costs are much lower than the national average, and that's because they house more prisoners, so the running costs and the fixed costs are lower. And it will be the same way that we built the Nightingale prisons. It will be a mission, a determination to make more prison spaces and to make crime pay.
Now, a lot of eyebrows were raised when El Salvador was mentioned. Of course, Donald Trump has, in a very high-profile manner, deported people, but most of them were El Salvadorians, back to their host nation. Pictures on our screens now. If you're listening on radio, just for the benefit of you guys, there are tattooed, topless thugs. These are some of the most violent criminals, as you can see, in El Salvador, often manacled together in very cramped and very strict conditions. Lady Cunningham, I put it to you, that they're the kind of prison conditions that human rights lawyers would be saying that no prisoner from Britain should ever go to, but you're proposing even sending British prisoners.
I don't think your viewers or anyone in this country would have a problem with Axel Rudikana or Ian Huntley being sent there. I think people don't, I hate to say it, are not that fussed about the human rights of these horrific human beings. As I said, the focus needs to shift on the human rights of the average person who's not a criminal and the human rights of victims. And that's not what we're seeing now. You saw Ian Huntley, he was wearing the Man United T-shirt. I mean, that must be just heart-wrenching for the parents. And we need to be tough. It needs to be a serious deterrent. I mean, look, we didn't have a conversation with the El Salvador government, but it's an image and it sends a message that we mean business.
And there is historical precedent right now of other countries doing this. Denmark,
yes,
for example, has got a 10-year deal with Kosovo.
And number one, it would reduce costs massively. And there are countries that want to take our money. I mean, I know that Labour and the Conservatives have been in discussion, but that all falls through unless you leave the ECHR. And they've kept us wedded to it. So, again, the ECHR prioritises, it seems, criminals' human rights over the victims. You hear, I mean, ridiculous stories of why we can't deport someone. And not only that, but they're housed in a hotel paid by us. I don't know if you saw last week an immigrant, an illegal asylum seeker, raped a girl, and he got less than Lucy Connolly as a prison sentence. And it was time served because he was remanded in custody until his trial. And then he goes back to the Holiday Inn in Heathrow. While all of us work and struggle to pay our bills, he's got heating, hotel, pocket money. It's real contempt. It's a betrayal of the British people.
Now, Leila Cunningham, of course, critics would say it's easy to make these sound bites, but in practice, they're a bit more difficult than that. Earlier on my show, between 3 and 6 p.m, I had Mike Tapp, the Labour Party MP for Dover. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Okay. Nigel Farage needs to treat the country with a bit more respect. And, you know, he's firing out sort of headline-grabbing lines about El Salvador, etc. And then he's not really coming up with any sort of credible ways of funding and delivering these policies. Now, we're in government. We've come into, obviously, a very difficult situation. The prisons are full. That's a simple fact. So, of course, we needed to take action. We're making sure that violent criminals are in prison. We've set out a plan to create 14,000 new prison places by 2031. We've already created about 2,500. Now, over the past 14 years, only 500 prison places were created, so there's a lot of catching up to do here. We also want to make people safer, and that's why we're putting 13,000 new coppers out on the streets, including named community officers.
So, Leila Cunningham, that was Mike Tapp on my show earlier on. Of course, the first thing that all of the critics of Reform UK say, in fact, the first question today was, how much will this cost? And you have set out a headline figure, I believe, of £17.4 billion over 5 years. Where would that money come from? How will it be paid for?
So I do find it quite rich that a Labour MP is talking about costing when we've discovered that they are actually the largest people smuggling gang. They conducted covert people smuggling under our noses, paid for by us, and set aside £7 billion while cutting the winter fuel tax on pensioners. But in terms of costing, it will cost £3.5 billion a year. The tax gap that crime amounts to is £9 billion. So these will all pay for themselves. The HMRC itself has said that crime costs the country about £80 billion a year. Some studies have said up to 137 billion a year. So they will pay for themselves. And these cost nothing.
So also mentioned today was knife crime, of course, something that people have a huge concern about. I think now actually UK tops the table in a shameful way for knife crime all across Western Europe. Nigel Farage was talking about zero tolerance on this. In fact, talking about stop and search being ramped up in areas where it's prevalent, where it will reach saturation point, knife archers at bus stations, at train stations. Does that send out a message, though, that Britain's a terrifying place to live and you're guaranteed to face accusations, of course, of racism here? When you start trying to get into communities where there are lots of black people carrying knives, how will this go down on the street?
So the message is very loud and clear. The UK is a terrifying place to be. Knife crime is on the rise. It goes up. It is completely normal for youth to carry knives right now. I've seen some of these knives as a prosecutor. They are horrific. They are serrated on both sides. They are there to cause maximum destruction with one strike. They're zombie knives. The Tories said they were going to ban them. Shocking that they didn't. I remember when Rishi Sunak first saw these knives and he's like, oh, I've never seen one of these before. And they're plaguing our youth. And it's our duty to protect them. And it's our duty to be very severe and very strict on it. And the message is international. So I was in America the past 2 weeks and people were like, oh my God, you know, I've heard what's going on in the UK. It's terrifying. How are you surviving? So the message is there, Martin. And it is up to us to help people. It's up to us to put a stop to it, not to ignore it.
And also, of course, mentioned today was New York City's broken window scheme. Mayor Giuliani brought that in. And Nigel Farage ended today with a note of optimism. It might feel bleak on British streets now, but New York did it. Why can't we? But that means putting an awful lot of people in an awful lot of prison cells. You're going to need to build some more NICs.
Well, actually, we're going to halve crime. So hopefully we'll need less prison cells. But I don't see a policeman on the streets. I don't. And like it or not, a police walking down the high street is a deterrent. Right? I remember when I was young and I'd see a cop, I'd be like, oh, crap, you know. Not that I was doing anything wrong, but, you know, there was a certain respect for the police officer then. And you just don't see it now. I mean, yesterday I saw two guys walking in balaclava down my street, and it's absolutely terrifying. And they wouldn't do that if they saw a police officer. And so we have to be a deterrent. And we have to take crime tough. Both parties are complicit. Like the Tories said they're going to hire 20,000 new officers. But what they didn't tell the public was that they got rid of 20,000 new officers. They take us for fools. And I think the British people are... I've really had enough of hearing about daily stabbings, muggings. My kids are scared. I'm scared for my children. And something's got to give. And you need a government that recognises it, addresses it, and is tough on crime. And we don't have that right now. We haven't had it in a few years.
OK, thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
As ever, thank you very much. That's the Reform Council for Westminster City Council, Layla Cunningham, present at today's launch. Thank you very much. Now, coming up next, the government's reviewing the state pension age once again. And guess what? That means that you will have to work longer and retire later, yet billions of pounds is still being poured into asylum hotels and universal credit for foreigners. Whose side is our government really on? That's next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Got some of your comments pouring in now. The first one is from Anne. She says this: Nigel reads the comments pages, takes note of all the popular complaints, then promises 30,000 new prison places, 30,000 more police, and loads of new, stronger laws. What I didn't see was where the money is coming from. Well, I think that was alluded to. In fact, I think they said it would be from the money saved from HS2 and also from Net Zero and axing DEI schemes, diversity schemes. Next comment is from Alan. He says this: we'll have to get rid of our obedience to the Court of Human Rights first, otherwise this will be a bean feast for the lefty lawyers. Alan, I think you're absolutely right, but I think baked into this is leaving the ECHR first, so those same lawyers no longer hold the whip hand. And the comment here from John: Nigel Farage has been attacked all day for wanting to fight crime. That says so much about Britain today. Well, welcome back to the show. Let's move on to our next topic, because today the Work and Pension Secretary, Liz Kendall, has announced a review once again of the state's pension age, opening the door for it to once again be increased.
This commission is been set up to tackle the problem that tomorrow's pensioners are currently set to be worse off than today's. Not enough people who are saving enough, and around half of all of the working age population isn't saving anything at all for its retirement. But the triple lock is non-negotiable, it's out of scope for this review. But the Commission is looking at, in the long term, how do we make sure we have decent incomes in retirement?
Well, here's the funny thing. If the pension age is increased by 1 year, then the government will save a projected £6 billion a year. But that can give out a reported £6 billion a year on universal credit to foreigners. Or how about £1.3 billion on asylum hotels? Well, the government is happy to spend billions and billions on benefits, which they also won't cut, of course, because universal credit that is now handed out to foreigners, now they're coming for your pensions. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Baroness Ros Altman, the Conservative peer and the former Pensions Minister. Ros, a pleasure to have your company. Here we go again. The pension age being ratcheted up, this time by another year, and it could go up to 67, 68. Got several points to go through. Let's go through the first one first. Politics is about choices, and the choice of this government seems to be to pump out billions to those who are from overseas in forms of universal credit, to pump out billions, up to £100 billion a year, to those on disability allowances by the end of the decade, and they cannot cut that sacred cow, and it always feels like pensioners are there to pick up the purse strings.
That certainly would be a good summary of some of the policy decisions that seem to have been made so far. Pensioners are seen as some kind of target to raid, and the elderly or the older population because maybe they don't go out on the streets and march and demonstrate and make a huge fuss, seem to be considered all to be well off, all to have done extremely well. And of course, that is so far from the truth. There are plenty of young people who are very well off. There are plenty of pensioners, indeed, who are very well off. But there are millions who are either at, below, or only just above the poverty line, struggling to make ends meet. They have no hope of ever earning more money, and they are stuck with either a state pension and or a private pension arrangement. But once you're already older, the opportunity to build up a private pension is long gone. Younger people will have a better chance to build up pensions, that's true. So I hope that this review will look properly at what pensioners' lives are like, rather than just assuming, well, they're all well off and they can all manage to work longer just because the average person is living longer.
Baroness Altman, may I ask you a question? Some people, they say the Labour government almost seems to hate pensioners. Is there something in the notion that typically more people vote for the Conservative side of the spectrum, for the Conservatives themselves, perhaps for Reform UK, and so they simply don't think it matters? They can target pensioners because they won't get their votes anyway. Is that harsh or is that fair?
Well, I don't quite know what the calculation they're making is. If it is a political one, then I guess the past evidence would suggest perhaps that more older people are towards the right end of the political spectrum and more young people are very much to the left. But again, if you're governing a country, you should be governing for the entire population. And it's hard to argue that with the lowest state pension pretty much of the developed world, our past governments have been extraordinarily generous to pensioners. I know that's the narrative because of this thing called the triple lock. But all that's done is stop the terrible position that we were in about 15 years ago, when so many millions of pensioners were either in or heading for poverty. So we've redressed some of that. We've improved relatively some of the position of pensioners and the state pension, but by no means are we supporting our pensioners extremely generously. We're just trying to help them keep up. Now, we have a state pension that's meant to be supplemented by private pensions, and half of the population in the past may have had very nice private pension provision, but the bottom half often are very much more likely to be ill and die early, and less likely to have any private pension to tide them over to an ever-rising starting age for state pensions, even though they may have worked for 50 years and paid into the national insurance system for that long.
Yeah, and Baroness Altman, Baroness, that'd be my next point. That this always hammers the working classes. They typically, the life expectancy of the working classes is decreasing, which means that they will be getting less of a pension over the years. They are often retiring early through ill health, particularly manual labourers. And people don't factor this in to this equation. So they have to retire earlier. They take less of a state pension. All the time the age is being put up. And if they do have any private pension left, the chances are that it'll be either taken away by care home costs, or 40% will be snaffled upon their death by the Labour government. And what about young people? Today's young people will be tomorrow's old people. By the time this generation retire, the pension age could be, what, 80?
I hope that the government and this review will finally recognise that just jacking up the pension age is not an answer to having a decent state pension system. And one of the biggest injustices is that there is a 20-year differential in healthy life expectancy between the best off and the worst off. So the worst off are only healthy into their early 50s, whereas the top 10 or 20% can stay healthy into their early 70s. For them, having a higher state pension age is not a problem. But the people who have often had heavy manual labour jobs or who didn't have an opportunity to go to higher education, maybe they left school at 15 or 16, they will have done 50 years worth of work potentially by the time they reach their mid-60s. And yet at the moment, the state pension age is already going to be 67 within the next couple of years, certainly before 3 years are up. So they may end up getting no state pension at all, whereas for a full state pension, you only need 35 years on your national insurance record. So they've worked a lot longer and paid more, and they still may get nothing.
Yeah, I think you're dead right. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. And that's Baroness Ros Altman, Conservative peer and former pensions minister. And at this rate, you know, we'll all be just on the hamster wheel, working ourselves to death, hardly ever getting a sniff of a pension. Meanwhile, pumping all of our money into universal credit for those born overseas. Now then, moving on, this evening at 9 p.m. is Patrick Christie's Tonight, a very special trans-channel version of your show. Patrick, what's happening over there in Calais?
Yeah, so it's talking about working yourself to death, Martin. We took that a bit too literally, actually, at one point, unfortunately. The migrant camps here in Calais have doubled in size, and they are significantly more aggressive than they were before. We decided that we wanted to try to actually smash the gangs, because it doesn't seem like any of our authorities are doing that. Here is one interaction that we did have with people at a migrant camp in Calais.
So they make a bit of noise. So, all right, we're going to have to get out of here. We just had glass bottles thrown at us. So that's that. OK. Well, yeah, we just had a glass bottles thrown at us, and I think it's probably best if we get out of here.
But the most important reason why we were here is that we've been in contact with several human traffickers. So I wanted to try to meet as many of them as possible in person and then hand their information over to the French police to actually try to get it stopped. And here is one of those interactions. Patrick Christie's, I'm from GB News. And you are a human trafficker, aren't you?
Are there?
Yes. Why are you bringing people illegally to Britain? Why are you bringing people illegally to Britain? So if you have a look quickly, just quickly, right? I've got absolutely loads of stuff for you. It's 9 to 11 p.m. here from northern France for a very special Patrick Christie's Tonight.
Patrick, you're doing God's work that side of the channel. Where at it, please have a word with Emmanuel Macron, trying to sort him out. 9 to 11, Patrick Christie's, beautiful stuff. Always a pleasure, thank you. Coming up next, more on immigration as Greece this time finally gets tough on legal migration, sending a clear message. Illegal entry equals a criminal offence. You either go home or get banged up in Greece. Now, if Greece can do it, why can't we? That's next.
Good evening. It's time for your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we go through the next 24 hours, there will be some heavy rain across western parts of Scotland in particular. Elsewhere, a few bursts of showers, but also some dry weather to be had. Currently, low pressure firmly in control of our weather, which is why it's been quite an unsettled day, and it will stay in charge of our weather through the next couple of days as well. As I said, across western Scotland, that's where we're going to see the heaviest rain as we go overnight. Some high rainfall totals building up, perhaps as much as 70 millimetres in some places, so there could be some disruption. Also cloud and rain down the western side of England and Wales. Further east, some drier, clearer weather, but for all it is going to be a relatively warm night. Temperatures generally holding up in those mid-teens Celsius. As we start tomorrow then, across western areas, it's quite cloudy with some damp weather on offer. Though across parts of the southwest of England, some brighter spells. Sunnier though across eastern parts of England, and some brighter breaks developing across parts of Northern Ireland, but across much of Wales, northwest England and large chunks of Scotland, it's a cloudy, it's a damp start to the day, the exception being just towards the far east and northeast. Now, the heaviest rain across western Scotland, that will have started to ease by the time that we get to tomorrow morning. But nonetheless, some further wet weather is on offer as we go through much of the day, breaking up a little bit as we go into the afternoon. Elsewhere, it's quite a cloudy picture for many. Even in the east, after a bright sunny morning, it's going to turn cloudier with some showery bursts arriving. Because of the cloud, although temperatures on paper are similar to today, it's probably going to feel a little bit fresher for many of us. Looking ahead to Wednesday, and eastern parts of England, perhaps even in the southeast, there could be some heavy bursts of rain pushing their way in. Elsewhere, a bit drier, but some showers around here and there, and then a drier theme as we go towards the end of the week. And with that, after a bit of a fresher feel during the middle part of the week, temperatures should rise again. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, don't come here, we'll jail you or we'll deport you. Now, that's the blunt warning from Greece's new immigration minister to millions of young men in North Africa eyeing up a trip to Europe. Now, like the UK, Greece has faced a massive surge in boat crossings with at least 10,000 migrants landing on Crete alone from Libya this year already. And now it's rejected asylum seekers face 2 years in prison, €10,000 fines, as well as a future 10-year ban. Now, there's a clear message there. Illegal entry equals criminal offence. And here's the point. If Greece can do it, then why on earth can't we? Well, I'm joined now by the former Labour advisor, Stella Santakidou, who I believe is in Greece. Welcome to the show, Stella. A pleasure to have your company. So, your new immigration minister, Thanos Plevris, says, don't come here. We'll put you in jail or send you back home. Greece is a tough man of illegal immigration in Europe. As a Greek yourself, you must feel proud.
I'm not sure I would feel proud about this specific politician. We happen to not share the same worldview and the same politics. I'm not just in Greece, Martin, at the moment. I'm actually on the island of Crete, which you mentioned, because it has been on the news lately, because of the large numbers of, as you said, immigrants from Libya that have arrived. And they have them in detention centers on the island, which the Telegraph did a story on the conditions there. It's a very, very difficult situation. They keep all of these people together without adequate facilities, and you have basically 5 police officers trying to look after them and to make sure they all stay there. The men obviously become very, very frustrated. It's mostly men. There is, I think, just a handful of women. But it is a very difficult situation because even the solutions that the minister is proposing, deporting them or imprisoning them, these are still costly. And it would cost the Greek state. And it is very difficult because just because you are saying that you're going to do that, that doesn't mean that the flow is going to stop. And one very important aspect of all of this is that Greece really needs the cooperation of countries like Turkey, which we used to have at some point, we no longer do. And that's a problem across the EU. And that's why countries like Italy and Spain were not extremely happy with the New Deal between the UK and France, because they were worried that if the UK is sending back people, where are they sending them back to? Are they sending them back to us? And just because our countries happen to be at the forefront front on the wall between Europe and Africa? Does this mean that they have to take up all of the costs of dealing with this wave of immigration? And obviously the Greek Prime Minister has said that, look, Italy and Albania may have been able to have a nice deal where immigrants will be processed in Albania, but that is not really a solution that can be scaled across Europe. So again, what do you do?
Well, Stella, so what the Greeks, they've been very clear. They've said, Thanos Plevris has said today, the Greeks, like the rest of Europe, want to help real refugees, but we will not be taken for fools. It is the end of the fairy tale. Those coming to Greece and Europe in incredible numbers are all women and children. They are mainly men, as you've confirmed, aged between 18 and 30, who are economic migrants. We are not a hotel anymore. And Stella, the plot thickens because the European Union are backing Greece on this because, of course, where you are right on the front line is a gateway into the Schengen zone. So, ironically, Brussels are clamping down on illegal immigration in Greece, in Crete, in a way that we can't even dream of back here in Britain.
I don't agree that this is not happening in Britain. That the problem is that the Prime Minister can say all sorts of things. The thing is, there isn't one authority for refugees telling people, please guys, stop trying to come to Europe to look for a better future for yourselves. But they're going to listen to that just doesn't exist. So it is just a situation where I think this is just horribly unfair to try to put the blame on just one authority or one country or the people themselves who really, you may say, yes, they're not legitimate refugees, they're not, there isn't the threat of imminent death, but a lot of them are coming from extremely difficult situations. A lot of them will be under the Convention of Refugees. They will be considered refugees.
Your own immigration minister says the vast majority are from safe countries, such as Egypt, where they're trying to dodge military conscription. They're from Pakistan. They're from Bangladesh. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is that we are totally unable in Britain to deport people back to the countries. We are not allowed to put them in prison. And my point to you is Greece is, and they're in both the ECHR and the European Union.
Yeah, well, let's see whether they will be able to actually pull off with what they said they're going to do, because the thing is, what are you going to do? Are you going to have all of these people in your prisons for the next 5 years? The Greek prison system is not in any better situation than the British one. I would like to see how deportations work. I do think we need to find a way to make deportations work. But again, deportations are expensive, right? And what the Greek Prime Minister said is there needs to be a way where we can have the kind of legal immigration we need, because Greece as well needs legal immigrants. There are certain jobs that Greece simply needs them. But at the same time, do something about the fact that you have a lot of people who are under the illusion, perhaps, that they're going to come here and they're going to have a better future. And for a lot of them, it is probably true that they could in the long term have a better future here, but it's simply not sustainable as it is. So let's see how this is going to work in practice, because of course the Greek government can speak tough, but the reason why the British government doesn't speak in the way the Greek government speaks is because the British government is being held to a much higher standard by its media class, by its voters, by everyone, whereas the Greek government just a bit used with making big statements and people forgetting about this or just not pulling it off.
OK, well, Stella, as I understand it, 450 illegal immigrants arrived where you are in Crete today, and all of them have been shipped to the mainland and they're currently being placed in prison to make that choice. You either stay in prison or you clear off back to where you came from. That's what your own Immigration Minister, Thanos Plevris, has introduced today. Stella, thank you very much for joining us from the front line there in Crete. Stella Thantakidou, pleasure to have you on the show as ever. Now, coming up next, some astonishing research has found that Britain's losing £2 billion every single year to the illegal black market tobacco trade. 1 in 4 ciggies are now fake or smuggled, with gangs exploiting even small boat routes, of course they are, to flood the UK. So much for smashing the gangs, they can't even smash the fags.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. It's hot and sunny across the vast majority of the Mediterranean at the moment. 1 or 2 showers in the north and fairly breezy across the Canary Islands and also Madeira. This northeasterly wind is bringing in a bit more in the way of cloud as well. Hot and sunny though for Iberia, most of Italy as well. Just 1 or 2 showers up towards Croatia and Slovenia. But for Greece and Turkey, hot and sunny, temperatures into the mid-30s. So do remember that sunscreen. And as we go through the next few days, it stays very similar.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain. So he can say whatever he wants. A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, can you believe it? Britain is losing over £2 billion every single year in lost revenue to the booming black market in tobacco. Astonishing new figures can reveal. Incredibly, a staggering 1 in 4 cigarettes smoked in the UK is now believed to be illegal, either counterfeit or smuggled in, often from Eastern Europe. Now, experts say that sky-high taxes and strict regulations are driving smokers to seek out cheaper, illicit alternatives. But smugglers are said to be using illegal migration routes, including even small boat crossings, to help flood the UK with dodgy ciggies, often tied to gangs from Vietnam, Afghanistan and Iran. Now, that's £2 billion gone, and that is enough to fund thousands of police or nearly the entire Home Office budget. This really does add up. I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio now by Nikki Small, who's the UK Corporate Affairs and Communications Director at Japan Tobacco International, who oversaw this research. Welcome to the show, Nikki. A pleasure to have your company. £2 billion is a lot of dosh. I want to ask you, where do these ciggies come from? Are they bad for our health? And more to the point, are they fuelling other illegal crimes?
Well, thank you for having me on, Martin. I really appreciate you taking the time to have me here tonight. So look, as you said, we've got a really serious issue with illegal tobacco in the UK. When we're talking about illegal tobacco, we're talking about product that is either smuggled in from other countries, as you quite rightly say, that is counterfeit, but also that you find in like your unregulated sources. So, for example, in your car boot sales, your markets, or under the counter in some shops. The government say that it's around £2 billion that's lost every year, and that's a huge amount of money. And what we need to do is find action on that. Now, many people think that that loss in revenue is the government's loss in revenue, but it's not. It's us as the taxpayers that are losing that money. And people think it's a victimless crime. It's, say £5 for a cheap packet of cigarettes, but that's not the case at all. Illegal tobacco has proven links to organised crime. Organised crime gangs that fund drug dealing, human trafficking, and other types of fraud, such as money laundering. So we need not to see that as a victimless crime anymore. And that's why as JTI, we've launched a new nationwide campaign. It's called It Costs What You Think. And it's to help raise awareness about the impact of illegal tobacco and what can be done about it and how we all need to make an effort to shut this down.
It's interesting how you mentioned the fact that, cheating the tax man, cheating the inland revenue, a lot of people might think, well, who cares? They're not particularly nicers, but you're absolutely right to point out £2 billion. Well, that will pay for the entire winter fuel allowance plus the farmer's inheritance tax rate, a significant sum of money. But I was struck there, Nikki, by another point you made. The fact that this could be giving money directly into the hands of people smugglers. So a box of fags from a car boot sale could be people's way of chipping in to get more illegal immigrants into the country.
Well, it goes to fund a lot of different activities through organised crime. And one of the interesting facts we found through the research that we did with the survey was that over 90% of people are really worried about the impact of illegal tobacco and organised crime connected together. But 77% of people are afraid of the repercussions if they report it. So the point of our campaign is to really educate people, to raise awareness, to give them the tools to say, how can you spot illegal tobacco? What can be done about it? What is the impact? That real key question of what is the impact and how to report it, but giving them the confidence to be able to do so that we're all playing our part together.
A lot of these ciggies as well, are they just kind of rebranded? Are they completely, can they be completely dodgy, very, very badly sourced, carcinogenic? The phrase people use is like the floor sweepings. There have been studies where like rat poison, all sorts of dodgy stuff can be in them. And there might be Reeboks with a nice branded packet. You've got no idea where they come from.
No, exactly. So it can be a whole range. One of the key ways to spot illegal tobacco is if it's in still with the branding, because we have unbranded packs in the UK. It can be product that has different health warnings on, so not UK health warnings. It could have different labels on that you're not used to seeing. There's lots of ways to do it, but a lot of people don't really understand how to spot it. I think 64% of people don't understand the difference. And yes, the counterfeit product, there have been many articles and research about how they have rat droppings, asbestos and other manners of floor sweepings thrown into it as well.
So not a good look all round. Fascinating study. Thank you very much for joining us on the show tonight.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have your company. Nikki Small, UK Corporate Affairs and Comms Director at JTI, Japan Tobacco International. Now, talk about smoking. My next guest is hosting State of the Nation tonight. It's not Jacob Rees-Mogg, it's his stand-in, transitioned. Chris Hope, you are covering for Jacob Rees-Mogg. What's on your menu?
It's not easy, but someone's got to, Martin. Great to see you. Guest tonight, Sarah Pochin, the woman tipped to be maybe Reform UK's first Home Secretary if they win power in 2029. Stephen Pound, Labour MP, of course, discussing the reform plans to halve crime in 5 years, 30,000 more police officers. Chris Webb, Labour MP for Blackpool, he's talking about what it's like to have a migrant hotel where some of the inmates allegedly make an OnlyFans video and how that's gone down locally in Blackpool. Although in Blackpool, frankly, no, it's a wild place, but even that is too much for local people there.
I was going to say, Chris, we've still got a minute left to talk about this. It's astonishing when you hear stories like that.
Yeah.
We heard about the burger joint being ran from an asylum hotel.
Yeah.
And now we're hearing about blue movies being made in Blackpool. Puts a whole new phrase on the Blackpool Tower. I digress. On a serious point,
it's very
does make
serious.
people think we haven't got a Scooby-Doo what's going on inside these places, let alone who's there and the criminality, but there are actual operations going on.
When it's found, they were moved on allegedly again, and lots of it's thought to have happened some time ago. But Chris Webb is rightly upset about it. I've talked to him for State of the Nation. He says Brighton, the Blackpool people feel they've been people dumped on them, and there's no real support for them. They've been forgotten about by Westminster, a big issue locally. He's raising that with us. Also, we're talking to Aishi Ali Khan, who's a Labour activist, about the possible Islamophobia definition. And just finally to a pastor from Hillingdon, Babatunde Balagan. He's been allowed to street preach again after winning a battle with his local council. So a victory there for street preaching.
And it's amazing how there are laws being brought in for Islamophobia, no laws brought in yet to protect Christians like that. Chris Hope, sounds very, very stimulating in the State of the Nation, is up next. Thank you very much as well to Nikki Small. Pleasure to have your company. I'll be back tomorrow, 3 till 6 p.m. Have a smashing evening. Stick around for Chopper. He's next. State of the Nation. First, though, here's your wonderful weather forecast.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. It's time for your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we go through the next 24 hours, there will be some heavy rain across western parts of Scotland in particular. Elsewhere, a few bursts of showers, but also some dry weather to be had. Currently, low pressure firmly in control of our weather, which is why it's been quite an unsettled day, and it will stay in charge of our weather through the next couple of days as well. As I said, across western Scotland, that's where we're going to see the heaviest rain as we go overnight. Some high rainfall totals building up, perhaps as much as 70 millimetres in some places, so there could be some disruption. Also cloud and rain down the western side of England and Wales. Further east, some drier, clearer weather, but for all it is going to be a relatively warm night. Temperatures generally holding up in those mid-teens Celsius. As we start tomorrow then, across western areas, it's quite cloudy with some damp weather on offer. Though across parts of the southwest of England, some brighter spells. Sunnier though across eastern parts of England, and some brighter breaks developing across parts of Northern Ireland, but across much of Wales, northwest England and large chunks of Scotland, it's a cloudy, it's a damp start to the day, the exception being just towards the far east and northeast. Now, the heaviest rain across western Scotland, that will have started to ease by the time that we get to tomorrow morning. But nonetheless, some further wet weather is on offer as we go through much of the day, breaking up a little bit as we go into the afternoon. Elsewhere, it's quite a cloudy picture for many. Even in the east, after a bright sunny morning, it's going to turn cloudier with some showery bursts arriving. Because of the cloud, although temperatures on paper are similar to today, it's probably going to feel a little bit fresher for many of us. Looking ahead to Wednesday and eastern parts of England, perhaps even in the southeast, there could be some heavy bursts of rain pushing their way in. Elsewhere, a bit drier, but some showers around here and there. And then a drier theme as we go towards the end of the week. And with that, after a bit of a fresher feel during the middle part of the week, temperatures should rise again. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend